Hello, folks. Welcome back to The Slice, Indian Wells Draw Preview Edition, where I, your host, Stephen Bowden, am obviously going to break down the Indian Wells draw. I've taken a day now to contemplate the draw, look at it, and get some very detailed analysis down, and we're going to get into it. We're going to look at the big three players' draw, even though they're not ranked 1, 2, 3 anymore because Federer's dropped. We're going to look at their draws, which one's the toughest, and we're going to look at what are the biggest matches in the early rounds of this year's Indian Wells. So it's going to be hot fire. I can't wait. And let's get into this episode.
Welcome to the Slice.
Welcome to the Slice.
Wow, folks, thanks for tuning in. I just appreciate all of you being here. Indian Wells is going to be sweet, but Miami is going to be even sweeter because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on the grounds. I can't wait. Thank you guys for watching and helping me get a media pass. If you want to help support me get there, just sign up for Front Row. It's our show that we do every second week. I got a show coming out in 2 days here, getting more in-depth about the Indian Wells draw and answering some of the fan questions. So click there to sign up and help me get to Miami. I would appreciate it a lot. Hit that subscribe button. But that's all from me because we got a lot to get into in this draw because it's the first Masters 1000 of the year. It's kind of something you forget. It's been like we had a couple of good tournaments last week. We had Acapulco and Dubai. Kyrgios winning in Acapulco, Federer winning in Dubai, and the Australian Open was a lot of craziness going on. So we have a lot of things happening. We have a new like Rafael Nadal, Kyrgios feud going on. So there's all this action coming into this year's Indian Wells, and it feels like there's already been a lot going on, which is true. But we just started this 2019 season still. March just started. Wow. But let's look at the draw. So on the top, we got Djokovic as the number 1 seed. And on the bottom, we have Nadal as the number 2 seed. Federer is the 4th seed behind Zverev, which makes sense because Federer lost a lot of points not defending his title in the Australian Open. But, yeah, so I guess we'll get right into it. One of the biggest obvious things that is pointed out to a lot of people and maybe other previews you've seen, I don't know, is anyone else doing this? But Djokovic could play Nick Kyrgios in the 3rd round, and I think that's the biggest early round matchup that we could see. We'll get into more of those later, but Kyrgios might be the hottest player on the planet right now after beating 4 top 10 players in Acapulco and making every Nadal fan in the world hate him. At the same time, I think. What do you guys think about? What do Nadal fans, I know you're watching. Let me know what you think of Kyrgios in the comment section below. But anyways, I think Novak Djokovic has the hardest draw out of the big three. But he doesn't have to play Federer or Nadal until the final. So that's a bit at the end. It's like maybe a bit easier, but I think throughout the whole thing, he has a pretty tough go of it. In the 2nd round, he'll probably play a qualifier. In the 3rd round, he plays if all goes to plan, which it usually probably won't with the type of guys that he could come up against, actually. So it could turn out to be a very easy draw, or it could be a nightmare, which is what it's looking right now. 3rd round, Nick Kyrgios. Just won a tournament in Acapulco, obviously playing real good. Looks locked in. Looks scary, honestly. Gael Monfils in the 4th round. He's found new love. Ding! And he won a tournament. I forget where that was, but yeah, earlier this year. He's been playing well. Then in the quarterfinals, Djokovic could play Thiem or Coric. Those guys are obviously tough if they can figure out the hard courts again. Both of them have had very slow starts to the year. And then in the semifinals, he's either going to play Zverev, Tsitsipas, Raonic, or Kevin Anderson. All 4 of those guys are huge hitters on a hard court, which is going to be tough. So that seems like a lot of obstacles for Djokovic to get over. So I think he's going to have a tough go of it. But we'll see. He hasn't played any tournaments since the Australian Open, which he won. And the last match he played was in the final of the Australian Open, and that might have been the best level of tennis I've ever seen in my life. I don't know. I just don't know. That was insane. I still can't believe it happened that way. So Djokovic has got a tough draw, and we're going to see where his level's at coming into this year's tournament. I'm going to put out a video in a little bit here just about Djokovic's last year because it's absolutely crazy. At Indian Wells last year, it was like, why is Djokovic even here? What's going on with his body? He lost to Taro Daniel in the 1st round. And what's happened since then is an absolutely remarkable turnaround. So I'm going to make a video about Djokovic's comeback soon. But anyways, Federer's next. I'd say he has the next hardest draw out of the big three, which kind of makes sense because he's the 4th seed instead of the 1st or 2nd. But the 1st seed, Djokovic, got a pretty tough draw too. So Federer could play Andreas Seppi in the 2nd round, who has been playing well. And then he could play his friend Stan Wawrinka in the 3rd round, which would be a big matchup. Federer, the GOAT, versus Stan, the man. Those are two nicknames. Wow, that's controversial. That said Federer's the GOAT. 1,000 comments on the last GOAT video. I appreciate it though, but that's my opinion. You could play Stan in the third round. You could play TFO, Edmund, or Fognini in the fourth round, which, I mean, it's kind of like putting those guys in there is real tough in the fourth round. Maybe is not warranted. Quarterfinals could be Cilic or Nishikori. And then in the semifinals, he could obviously play Nadal. So pretty tough, I would say. Pretty tough, but it's a Masters 1000. That's what you get. They're tough. Rafael Nadal has a very easy draw until Federer. He plays Medvedev in the fourth round if that works out, and Isner in the quarterfinals if that works out as well. But that's pretty far down the road. And then he'll play Federer. So he's got a pretty easy route, I think, to like the later rounds. I think basically the story of this is I expect to see Djokovic, Federer, Nadal in the semifinals. Like, what do you guys think? What percentage chance do you think those three guys don't have of making it? I just feel like at this point, you know, the next gen's coming, but I still think now in the Masters 1000 especially, it's going to be those three guys in the semifinals, but we'll see. Now, speaking of the Federer matchup, Federer and Nadal, they have not played since Shanghai 2017. And if you do remember, 2017 was the year of Federer turning the tides. Federer won 4 out of 4 of the matches against Rafa. The last time Rafael Nadal actually beat Federer, which is kind of mind-blowing, is the Australian Open 2014, over 5 years ago. So, yeah, Federer's beaten Rafael Nadal the last 5 times they played. Rafa behind going out, yeah, what happened the times before that? Very good point. You know, Rafa won pretty much a lot of those matches, the vast majority, but I'm just saying in their old age, in this retirement home of the greatest of all times, Federer's had the better way of Nadal. But in this year's Indian Wells, if they do end up meeting, which is pretty, like, it's like there's a lot of matches to be played in between then, but if they do end up meeting, I'm giving the slight advantage to Nadal because he played really well at the Australian Open on a hard court. This is a different court. I think this is a slower court, which would favor Nadal as well. But he played attacking tennis. I don't know how well that would work against Federer, because if they get in short rallies, that's going to favor Federer, especially on a hard court, and especially when he's serving really well, which he did in Dubai. But Rafa has played better so far, I'd say, in 2019, except for last week. So what do you guys think? Who are you giving the advantage to? Right now, I'd say Nadal. But the one thing I would say is the slower courts, which I've heard that the Indian Wells courts are slower, might help Federer get into Nadal's returning, because we saw in their matches before, Federer has had no problem breaking Nadal. And that's because Federer's returns have gotten a lot better. Nadal's serve has also looked better in 2019. So we will see. It's kind of ridiculous to like judge it this far before either of them have played a match, but I'm giving a slight advantage to Rafa in this one. But yeah, let me know what you think. And lastly, we have what are the biggest matches that are going to happen early? I already talked about Djokovic, Kyrgios in the third round. Absolute hot fire. I would love to see Kyrgios try and get under Djokovic's skin. And I bet you Djokovic has obviously watched what happened in Acapulco. And I bet you Djokovic does not like it when there's any type of like animosity before matches. And he usually turns it up a little bit when that happens. We saw that with Shapovalov, who was doing a little bit of smack talking before their match in Australia, and Djokovic tuned him in. But yeah, Djokovic, Kyrgios, and then there's Federer, Stanislas Wawrinka in the round 3, and then I got Dimitrov, Zverev, Alexander Zverev in the third round. That could be an interesting match. Is Dimitrov gonna have another year? I think he takes like 2 years off after every good year, but we'll see if he can kick it back into action. In the second round, we have Tsitsipas versus Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime. If you haven't heard of him, he made it to the final of the Rio Open, which is an ATP 500, and he had to qualify for that tournament. So pretty crazy. And then we got Berdych Lopez in round 1. A couple old pros getting matched up early on. Because the draw people don't have no respect, I guess. I don't know. I'm just saying that. Also, wherever Dan Evans falls, it'll be an interesting first-round match. We'll see, because he's hopefully going to qualify. Because he's a friend of the show, and I'm totally rooting for Dan Evans. But anyways, that's the slice on the Indian Wells draw. It's exciting because everybody's here. Everybody seems to be healthy, except for Juan Martín del Potro, who I just realized I didn't see in the draw. Or did I? I don't think I did. So I'm going to have to do an update later on the next video on what's happening with the old Argentinian. But until then, what you can do is sign up for Front Row. It's only $4 a month to get all access, or $10 a month to get a free shirt sent to you and be able to watch the show. But mainly with all this, it's just supporting me to get to tournaments. Like, it costs a lot. Thanks for watching, folks. Click here to subscribe. Click here to sign up for the front row. And I guess click somewhere in here to watch another video and make yourself a better tennis fan. Peace.